If I could ask everyone to stand for a moment of silence, and then we'll ask Ms. Tackett to lead us in the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me. Thank you. Shall we call the roll, please?
Yes, sir.
Timing's perfect. Thank you, Mayor.
Mrs. Singer-Erdley.
Present.
Mr. Lesby.
Here.
Mrs. Lesby Mitchell.
Here.
Mrs. Tingle-Sames.
Here.
Mr. Showalter.
Here.
Mr. Stone.
Here.
Mrs. Tackett.
Here.
Mr. Thompson.
Here.
Thank you. We have a full house tonight. Thank you very much. Each of you should have a copy of the minutes of our last regularly scheduled meeting, July 8th. If you'd like to take a moment to look those over for any possible corrections or additions.
Motion, Mayor.
Thank you.
Second.
Second?
Who was that second?
Well, there were two of them, but Todd was loudest. I heard his.
Football season.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Minutes are approved. Each of you should have received a copy of our latest check register. If you could indicate if you've seen that register. Thank you. Tonight is a really special evening. It's a big council meeting for us. We don't have an extremely lengthy agenda, but we've got some very important things to do tonight. But first, let us go through the public comment portions of our agenda as we typically do. And I would first like to call to the podium Miss Bailey Gilkerson and Natalie Parton. So you've let Lori do something else tonight.
Yes,
and
Lori's
you're bringing the tourism show.
We
tonight.
are, yes. For those of you all that don't know me, I'm Bailey with the Tourism Office.
And I'm Natalie.
It's nice to meet you all tonight. We're here for the 39th Annual Festival of the Horse,
Yes.
which is going to be here before we know it. In your all's packet, you should have the permit application. And do I need to run through the permit application?
No.
Okay.
Need a motion.
You know, after,
Perfect.
how'd you say,
Yes.
39 years, it's become
Yes.
very routine for us.
Yes.
Better every year.
Yes. So
I'll
just
make a
on.
motion to.
Todd made the motion.
Perfect.
Marvin has seconded.
Good deal.
We're easy.
Questions for the ladies from tourism?
They know
Well,
what
thank
to do
you.
with it.
They know what
Yeah,
to do.
I mean, it's been run smooth for years, no change now.
If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you all.
We look
Thank
forward
you.
to joining you for the festival. Next on the public sign-in sheet is Miss Amelia Cloud.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Amelia Cloud. I'm here representing the Arts and Cultural Center tonight. I want to make sure I invite you all. I have a save the date card so you can put it on your calendars. I've already talked to a few of you about this. We have applied for a historic marker for the jailer's house and the jail, and it has been approved. We've worked on the wording. I've worked with Ann Bevins and Ruthie Stevens over at the museum, and we've got the wording down, so they're getting ready to cast the marker now. And once it's cast, we'll have it installed, and then we're going to have a formal dedication, and I want to make sure you all are invited. So I want you to make sure you get it on your calendars so you don't go someplace else that night. It'll be November the 1st. That's a Friday. We wanted to have it in October around Halloween, and I thought there was great irony in having it on November 1st, which some of you may know is All Saints' Day, to have that over at the jail. And what we're going to have is dedicating the marker, but we'd like to have people tell their stories about the jail. You know, people that have been in and out
There are
working
some
at the jail.
stories about the jail.
Right, and the jailers and people that have been, you know, working with the sheriff's department and different things over the years when they were at that facility. I've been working with a number of different volunteers to pull together some art shows. We're going to have one room will be some of the history of the jail in Scott County, and the other will be new art that we'll have of different kinds of art. We'll have some projects and demonstrations and things leading up to that, which you'll find out more about. But I just wanted to make sure that you all could be there and honor this special event. So I'll pass these out to y'all.
What time is it?
It's going to be 5 to 7.
That's
The dedication will have at 5:15. I thought we wanted to make it, or thereabouts. We wanted to make it so it was, people would not have left downtown if they were working, downtown. But the party will be there going on until 7, and we'll have refreshments. And we have the library coming. They're going to help record oral histories. So if people have stories they want recorded, we'll do that too.
Amelia, how have you all funded the marker?
The marker, we did a bunch of fundraising last December. We had our usual art market. We did the gingerbread houses. We had a bake sale. So we raised almost $2,800, I think, doing that. The Historical Society donated $500. And then in the end, we decided we wanted a two-sided marker instead of $2,500 would have been the cost of one side, same wording on both sides. But we decided we had enough information for the jail on one side and the jailer's house on the other side. So we had some money set aside for jail projects, so we just opted, the board just opted to do the two-sided sign, and so we've worked on that. So we've got all, I think, good information on there to make people interested enough and to do some more research on the building.
I'm very proud of you all for funding this yourself.
Oh, yeah.
It's a big deal.
It is a big deal, and it was...
The council has helped put these markers up before at city expense.
Okay, well, we're hoping. I've already talked to...
I'm very proud of you all for doing this. Without
She's probably
Well,
got another one.
I've talked to Mr. Covington and about it, so he knew about it, and since it's in front of a county building, I'm hoping that they might help with the installation part of it, but that
If
we have not asked any of the public
somebody will
entities
help you with that
to
installation.
fund. Yeah, we did it ourselves.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Bill.
Well,
you.
thank you. I hope to see you there that night.
Yes, ma'am. Next on the sheet for public comment is Mr. Stephen Price.
Thank you, Mayor Prather, Council, for allowing Georgetown citizens to come and speak to you prior to each council meeting to say what's on their mind. My name is Stephen Price. I live at 167 Rucker Avenue in Georgetown. I have here a copy of the front page of the Kentucky Driver's Manual. Each of you probably read it to get your driver's license. I know I did. I had to read it, pass a written test. Kentucky Driver's Manual. On page 62 of the current Kentucky Driver's Manual, advice from the Kentucky State Police is to drive less, consider other modes of travel, drive only when necessary, combine as many trips as you can. Your vehicle is really safest and most economical when it is parked. Consider carpooling, taking the bus, using a bicycle, or walking. That's advice from the Kentucky State Police to each of us and to every citizen in Kentucky. And I think they should have added here, I talked with Policeman Wallen last week. I asked Policeman Wallen how many cars are involved with the crimes which you address. I could ask Chief Bosey now maybe. And Policeman Wallen said almost all of them. Sure. And so the Kentucky State Police could have added to their advice about not driving, your car is not only safest and most economical when it's parked, but it's also also less likely to be used in a crime. What does this all add up to, this advice from the Kentucky State Police? It adds up to a big rejection of motor transport, which leads to a rejection of motor manufacturing, which leads to a rejection of Frankfurt's vision for Georgetown being the manufacturing epicenter of the world. What that means to me is that I should walk, and I do walk everywhere I go, and I urge you to help me lead this town toward healthy, accident-free, crime-free pedestrianism. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Megan? Thank you. Next on the list for public comment is our very own Todd Stone.
I've got two things, Council. One is the freshman move-in day. The other one is a street fair that the college is putting on through Student Life. The move-in day is August 15th. Shutdown would be from 8 to 3. Memorial Drive specifically. Probably would open it up earlier than that, but, you know, we do want to make the request. And then the street fair is on August 24th, and it would be an all-day event operating from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Second event requires street closures.
That second event does, just Memorial Drive is all they're looking to close.
Mayor, make a motion for both of them.
Thank you. And second.
Thank you.
Any questions for Todd?
No.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Next time we gotta go to the podium.
It's amazing that we're getting close to move-in day
Yeah,
together.
it is.
It is.
Okay. That concludes our public comments, if there's no one else in the audience that wishes to address the council. Mayor's comments. Now, there's one really important thing that I have to do, that we get to do under mayor's comments, about while Megan's upstairs helping me find some materials that I need. Just a couple of brief comments under general mayor's comments. Delighted to let you know that the Float Fest has been rescheduled for August 3rd. So if anybody would like to participate in that, that'll be a good time. This weekend, we have Party on the Park on Saturday evening, which is always, council made such a great decision when we moved those down to Royal Spring Park, but that'll be this Saturday. For any of you who may have visited UCO Inn recently, you will notice as you cross over the bridge going up to the pavilion, all of the white stones underneath the bridge that form the spillway from the wastewater plant all the way down to the pond, all that has been cleaned up, new riprap put in place, and that was all the work of Jacob Underwood, who did his Eagle Scout project.
Right.
And got help. It was a great effort by an Eagle Scout.
Could,
And,
We need to have him here and recognize him.
or either
I
put a
think.
plaque up over there in his name on that bridge for his work
Yeah.
that he's done for the bridge.
yeah,
Something like
well, and
that.
as we go through the master plan for UCO Inn, that's certainly
That'd be a
something.
great thing to do.
Certainly something we could do. Also want to mention that on August the 24th, it's misnamed, but they're going to hold a river sweep. For us, it should be a creek sweep. Well, the Elkhorn Creek's 99 miles long, but it's not a river. But this is styled after the efforts they've done for the Kentucky River, for the river sweeps. So we're going to have the same activity on August the 24th for Elkhorn Creek. We will not be out in the water, we won't be on boats, but we'll be on the bank at Oser Landing and Cardinal. Thank you. Geographically challenged here tonight. So if you would put that on your calendar. Would also like to mention that we've had some outstanding work done recently by code enforcement. Some efforts that have been pretty heavy lifts, where it's taken a lot of work to get certain situations addressed and remedied. Now that we have code enforcement reporting through the fire department to Fire Marshal Tim Thompson, we've gotten a lot of good work done. Tim specifically asked that we make reference to the cooperation that code enforcement has been receiving from the fire department, from Public Works, from all of our agencies that are truly pulling in the same direction. Police department. These are tough situations, but code enforcement under Tim's leadership is doing a great job, and they've asked that we complement the other agencies that are involved.
Good job.
Just a quick note, I've kept you all up to date at each meeting on our progress with solid waste management. Those negotiations continue. As I've reported before, this is primarily an activity that's done between the county government and the vendors. Since by state statute, county government is responsible for the solid waste plan. We continue to be involved in their discussions, and we participated in a lengthy vendor session with 3 solid waste companies that have an interest in the future of Scott County's solid waste. The judge is making progress there, but it's a very active process. I wanted to mention it tonight because throughout these conversations, it's become more and more evident that this may be a time for us to consider privatizing solid waste collection. In the past, we've tried to keep that as a city service, since we felt like sometimes we can give more service than a private company can. But this is a very specialized line of business, and we had the conversations with at least 2 of the vendors about the city's potential interest as a part of the county's negotiations or as a bid situation after the county concludes their conversations, that we're willing to consider this step. I've discussed it in depth with Robert Bruin. We've talked about our impact, how it would affect our employment levels. But it's one of those future actions that we're going to consider, and wanted you all to be aware that it's at least on our radar at this point. It would also be our expectation that if we do bid a service of that type, that we would have an option for curbside recycling as a part of that corporate bid package. So,
Here, can I ask a question
Yes, sir.
related to that? We had some serious conversations about that in years past, and I guess we were involved with the county. And you mentioned the employees, and at that time, one of the things that we discussed was if we did decide to privatize, that we would allow attrition to kind of take care of the numbers. Have you all gotten to that point of
I've
conversation?
asked Robert to start looking at those issues.
Okay.
At what an appropriate workforce is.
Yeah.
To maintain the level of public works attention that we
Right.
want. I also had the chance during those vendor discussions, as we broached this topic, I asked a couple of vendors, what would we do with our trucks? And they said, we'll buy them.
Yeah.
Yeah, sweet.
What would we do with our employees? We'll hire them.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So Robert's just beginning this evaluation. It's just an early warning for you that it's being talked about, and that subject may now be ripe for our consideration.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that. I think if one of them might have been watching tonight, they might have been kind of wondering what their future might
what's
look
happening
like.
here?
So I think that's very positive in that regard. If we do decide to go that direction, it sounds like you've got a really good game plan, which I'm not surprised. And then secondly, I guess it could also be hopefully a tool in regards to maybe negotiating the transfer station out on 25. I don't know, and I don't want you to show your hand if that's the case, but I guess a lot of things are possible.
Yes, sir. And that situation is very fluid. You all have probably seen in the local news that Republic Waste Services has postponed their public hearing that was supposed to be tonight.
Yeah, I saw that.
That was at the county's request and the city's request. Interestingly enough, Republic agreed to postpone the hearing, and then the Division of Solid Waste refused
Oh,
Wow.
because other outside entities had requested a hearing, but their requests were in order to oppose the location. So they finally relented, and it gives us a chance to at least have more conversations and try and sway Republic from that location. Other potential solid waste vendors are also looking at transfer station opportunities in Scott County. But they're looking in places where we're much more comfortable
yeah.
for
Yeah.
that transfer station to be located.
Okay.
David, I'm still very concerned about that transfer station at 1149 Lexington Road. And we have a temporary reprieve. I'm not sure it's permanent.
Yeah.
The next on my notes for public comments, and it precedes what is on your printed agenda. We do have an executive order appointing a fire chief tonight, but we have some other business that we need to do first. And that is, this is the last council meeting that Fire Chief John Ward will attend as chief. So we need to recognize Chief Ward. And I want the council to join me in recognition for Chief Ward. John has been an outstanding fire chief, and his tenure has been marked with many successes for the fire chief. It's also very meaningful to me tonight that we have Robert Bruin in the audience tonight. And for purposes of this conversation, he's not Director of Public Works, he's Chief Bruin. So Chief Bruin is here to honor his predecessor and also our newly appointed fire chief. So Robert, Chief, thank you for being here to be a part of this. And we acknowledge the progress that was made with the department under your leadership. Chief Ward has continued that progress. I sometimes make reference to the fact when I'm talking to firefighters and their families at recruit events that Chief Ward has presided over the greatest modern day transformation of our fire department. We've had so many retirements and so many people leave our department, so much seniority leave the department, that it's been a real job to keep our department at the level it's been and to increase its efficiency. So I credit Chief Ward with maintaining a culture of excellence and a culture that stands on Robert Bruin's shoulders and so many firefighters that came before them. Things that John has done for us, I'm working without notes, John. This is just from the head and heart. But during our time together, John has led us to an ISO rating of 2. And we know that only 2% of the fire departments in Kentucky have that rating. So it is an elite fire department. John has introduced our joint training classes with Frankfurt to make us more efficient and round out their training in ways that we may not be able to do on our own. He started an officer training class. And he's made me feel real confident as mayor during all that time. I think as Chief Ward leaves us, Our equipment is in the best shape that it's ever been, both frontline apparatus and reserve apparatus, and that is no small statement. It's also should make every one of you proud. The number of firefighters that are in the audience tonight, to honor everything that we're doing. And that, gentlemen, ladies, that's not lost on me, and it's not lost on the council. So thank you very much for being a part of this. We are having a citywide cookout this coming Friday from 11:30 to 1 at Station 3, and you're all invited. We'll have hamburgers and hot dogs and have a big time at that, and that'll be our opportunity and the staff's opportunity to honor Chief Ward and say goodbye to him. At that event, we have a proclamation being prepared, and when I asked Megan to go upstairs just a few moments ago, Chief, we have a key to the city prepared for you, and I couldn't find it on my desk, and we can't get a hold of Arlene.
You've lost the key.
So, all I can do is blush over that.
Yeah. Mayor, maybe who broke the front door stole your key.
So you all noticed our front door. Okay, thank you. Chief, what we normally tell recipients of the key to the city is it doesn't fit any bank vaults in town, but it clearly is the key to our hearts.
Yes.
And we're very proud of that and very proud of you. And I would ask if the council would join me out in front for a picture with Chief Ward. His wife is here, and I'd like to honor Chief in that way.
That's good.
We're going outside.
Chief Rose, Megan's got my keys. They're about the closest thing I've got.
You should have taken the car keys. That is the Camry.
Yeah,
That's
it's
the
a good car out there.
Yeah, that's a nice car.
Would that have been my departing gift?
That's right. You
Well,
missed it.
but you also got the police chief right behind you. He'd get it back. So.
I can't thank you all enough. I really didn't want to talk tonight. Sometimes I get emotional, but
Okay.
it's been a great career. Great. And, you know, the reason I guess I want to get up here because I want to you know, make sure I thank everyone, you know, because what I did here wouldn't have been possible without all that help. You know, my wife and just tremendous help, support. Mayor, council, thank you all. It's made it fun. It's made it, you know, a place that I enjoyed coming into work. You know, I think Judge Husby talked about, you know, this is the greatest place. This fire department, I don't want to put it above it, because it, to me, is the greatest place. It, you know, it wasn't like a job. And, you know, Mayor, you mentioned all the accomplishments that our department, it wasn't me. One thing I can assure you all, you have a premier fire department. You have a group of individuals that is dedicated beyond what I could even imagine. They made my job a piece of cake. Great group of guys. Professionalism at its top. But again, guys, thank you all. Mayor, council, thank you all. Loved every bit of it. Thank you.
Before we get to the executive order appointing our new fire chief, if I could take just a few minutes to describe to the council and the public the process that we went through to get to where we are this evening. Choosing a new chief of a department that is as excellent as the Georgetown Fire Department is a difficult proposition. And it's an awesome responsibility because of the history and the culture and the heritage that our fire department represents. So I felt this responsibility very strongly. We wanted to be thorough and just do this well. So we put together a panel of folks to help us make this very hard decision. And I'd like to give you the makeup of that committee and express my thanks to this committee. They spent a lot of time on this. They began interviews at 8:15 in the morning and didn't finish up until 5 o'clock that evening. We fed them lunch. We didn't even let them go for lunch because we had them talking during lunch. But the folks that served on the committee that helped us get here tonight was Mr. Danny Castle. Danny is Executive Director of the Kentucky Chiefs Association, and he's a retired fire chief from the Winchester Fire Department. We had Scott Lanter, who many of you all remember from being on the Georgetown Fire Department. Scott is now Director of Public Safety and Operations for Bluegrass Airport. We had Alonzo Allen, who is a retired Toyota executive. He serves on the Diversity Action Council and is chair of the Women's Leadership Exchange Network. So he brings a community perspective that we needed. Mike Hockensmith, owner of the Hockensmith Agency, for a community voice. And an interesting choice was Bill Cronin, head football coach at Georgetown College. I don't know of anybody that would know character and leadership better than Coach Cronin. And then from internally, of course, Andrew Hartley and Megan Miller sat on that committee. So I want to thank them for the work that they did in helping us get to the point where we are tonight. And I want to tell you just a little bit of the feedback that I received from this committee, because I think it's important that you hear. This fire department is not only respected here locally, it's respected throughout Kentucky. We learned that from this panel. I was very proud to learn that our internal candidates did exceptionally well during the interviews. And that was very clear from this committee. So that meant a whole lot to me, that they gave us that feedback, and that we clearly had the right character within our department and the right integrity within our department to continue the path that we're on. That said, the committee brought me 2 finalists. I spent a morning and had a long conversation with each of those finalists. And what I was searching for at that stage of the process is where I felt comfortable and where I felt you would be comfortable and what would be in the best interest of the city. So it was with what I think is a very informed decision that we made the selection of Mr. Greg Bayer to recommend to you to be the new fire chief. You received Mr. Bayer's resume. He is retired from the Lexington Fire Department just a couple of years ago, where he served as battalion chief for special operations. I think there's a depth of knowledge. There's a depth of respect for the Georgetown Fire Department and its firefighters that I determined from Mr. Bayer. That can help us not only maintain what has been accomplished, but help us do that even better. One of the things that Mr. Bayer said to me that really resonated, and I've agreed with him on this point, that we all need to work together to make sure that he is the last outside chief we hire. That's a powerful statement, but that's the commitment that we're making to our department and to those who stay with us after Chief Ward's departure. So, Tracy, if you'd read the executive order, we'll have a vote. Great time for your computer to freeze up.
Fire Chief. Effective July 29th, 2019, Greg M. Bayer is hereby appointed as Fire Chief for the City of Georgetown. All previous executive orders in conflict with this order are hereby rescinded. Pursuant to KRS 83A.080, this appointment requires the approval of the City Council.
Before we vote on this, one other point I'd like for you to make is there are a lot of firefighters in the room to respect Chief Bruin, Chief Ward, and Chief Bayer. I am extremely grateful that some of our internal candidates for the position are here in support of this decision.
Classy.
That should tell you the type of fire department that you have. Yep. And that makes me swell with pride. Yep. So, gentlemen, thank you all for having the courage and the character to do that. Is there a motion for approval?
Motion, Mayor.
Second. Mark. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion is, it carries. Chief Bayer, would you like to address the council?
Thank you. I promise I'll be short. I know there's a lot on the agenda. I'm honored and humbled to take over and move ahead such a strong foundation that has been laid by the men and women of Georgetown Fire Department and their leadership. I've known Chief Bruin, Chief Ward. A firefighter is always a firefighter. A brother is always a brother, and a sister is always a sister. You're more than welcome, Bob. More than welcome anytime. I encourage it. One of the things I'd like to see is our retirees come back. This is our community. I have a vested interest here. This is where I've lived, raised my children, my family, and this is where I'll stay. To the men and women of the Georgetown Fire Department, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I'm a public servant. I work for you. My job is to make you successful in your job, and that's a pledge that I have not only to the men and women of the fire department, but to the council, to the mayor, and to the citizens of Georgetown. So I look forward to working with each and every one of you. I look forward to going to neighborhood association meetings, and I look forward to making a great city and a great fire department even better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Back to the agenda. Item 7 on the agenda under Georgetown Municipal. Now, everyone's invited to stay for a civics lesson.
Well, look at him go.
We understand you may not, but you're invited to stay for the civics lesson.
You're up. And Robert's leaving too. Yeah, they knew you were talking.
I know.
Chase is on vacation tonight, so he has sent his designee. We're glad to have you tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Georgetown Water has one purchase order this month. It's for Thermodyne Enterprises. It's for some thermofloc. It's 4 loads of thermofloc, and this is for wastewater plant number 2, and it'll be a straight pass through to Toyota.
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
And seconded. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Item 8 under City Attorney, we have a handful of actions. Bruce, I think you're up first. We have second reading of the East Main Street Extended Annexation Ordinance. Sponsors are Mr. Stone and Mr. Thompson.
I'm going to yield to Matt Summers.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. The rezoning and annexation in question is for the Drake property. Several years, I think it was over 10 years ago, you all annexed and rezoned a portion of this property to our B2 zoning district. Today, they're seeking to rezone and annex the remainder of that property. It's just under 21 acres to a combination of our B5 zoning district and our C1 zoning district, which is our conservation district. And the conservation district will really just follow the floodplain and keep all of that protected by ordinance and regulation. We found that it met all the requirements of KRS, and it was in agreement with our comprehensive plan.
You said B5, it's business.
That's our general commercial park district. Sort of the location that it's in, it's situated between a B2 zoning and some light industrial uses, and it kind of allows for some of both.
So it could be either or. Okay.
Yeah.
B5 is a little bit more restrictive, right, in terms of signage?
Yeah, there's some restrictions as far as signage, but as far as the uses, it does allow for some light industrial as well as retail uses.
Matt, I made a promise to ask, what about the spring house, that little stone building? What will that be preserved, or what?
Yeah, our preference would be that the spring house and the historic house that are on the site remain. Unfortunately, it's outside of any local historic district, and I don't believe that we have any sort of local regulatory authority to mandate that it stays in place. I think the applicant is, from my discussions with Bruce, the applicant is seeking a way to have somebody purchase and move that house to another location in hopefully a respectful manner. But as far as I can tell, we don't have any, I was unable to find any local regulatory authority to sort of encourage them to keep it in place.
So why don't we go ahead and have second reading of the ordinance?
An ordinance annexing to the city of Georgetown certain real property containing 22.79 acres located at 944 East Main Street extended in Scott County, Kentucky. Summary: 1. Annexes into Georgetown city limits by written consent of the property owners in accordance with KRS 81A.412, 22.79 acres of property located at 944 East Main Street extended in Scott County, Kentucky. Provides for an effective date upon passage and publication. Publicly introduced and read for the first time July 8th, 2019. Publicly read the second time July 22nd, 2019.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval?
Motion.
Thank you.
I'll second, Mayor.
And seconded as sponsors. Thank you. Shall we, if there are no further questions, shall we call the roll?
Mrs. Tingle Sames?
Yes.
Mrs. Leslie Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Lesby?
Yes.
Mrs. Singer Erdley?
Yes.
Mr. Showalter?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Thank you. That ordinance is approved. Item B on the agenda is associated with that. It's second reading of the zone change ordinance that affects the same property.
An ordinance changing the zoning classification of certain real property containing a total of 23.16 acres located at or around the intersection of McClellan Circle and the U.S. Highway 62 bypass in Georgetown, Scott County, Kentucky, from A1 to C1 and B5 and B2 to C1. Summary: 1. Rezoning 23.16 acres located at 944 East Main Street Extended, Georgetown, Kentucky, from A1 agricultural to C1 conservation for 9.88 acres and A1 agricultural to B5 commercial for 12.45 acres and A1 agricultural to B5 commercial for 0.46 acres and B2 commercial to C1 conservation for 0.37 acres. 2. Provides for an effective date upon passage and publication. Publicly introduced and read for the first time July 8, 2019. Publicly read the second time July 22, 2019.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Second. And if there are no questions, we'll call the roll.
All right. Mr. Showalter?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Singer Erdley?
Yes.
Mr. Lesby?
Yes.
Mrs. Lesby Mitchell?
Yes.
Mrs. Tingle Sames?
Yes.
Thank you. That ordinance is approved. Item C, under City Attorney, is second reading of the 167 Industry Road Zone Change. Sponsor, Ms. Tackett. You'll recall this was the cleanup ordinance that we did from a couple of years ago.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Bruce.
Council.
Ready?
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance changing the zoning classification of certain real property containing 5.001 acres located at 167 Industry Road in Georgetown, Scott County, Kentucky from A1 to I1. Summary: amends the official Georgetown, Scott County zoning map to show a change in the zoning classification for certain real property consisting of a total of 5.001 acres located at 167 Industry Road in the city of Georgetown, Scott County, Kentucky from A1 agricultural to I1 light industrial, which amendment is contingent upon the passage of the ordinance annexing the property into the city limits, provides for severability, repeal of inconsistent ordinances, and an effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the city clerk's office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Introduced and publicly read for the first time July 8, 2019. Publicly read the second time July 22nd, 2019.
Motion, Mayor.
Thank you. Motion's been made.
Second.
And seconded. If there are no questions, we'll call the roll.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Showalter?
Yes.
Mrs. Tingle Sames?
Yes.
Mrs. Lesby Mitchell?
Yes.
And Mr. Lesby?
Yes.
Mrs. Singer Erdley?
Yes.
Thank you. You know, I don't remember a meeting when we've had this many second readings all at one time.
And all easy ones.
And all
But they're nice
relatively
ones.
non-controversial. Item D under City Attorney is second reading of the amendment to our smoking ordinance. Sponsors are Ms. Sames and Mr. Stone.
An ordinance amending Georgetown Code of Ordinances, Chapter 8.5, Article 2 regarding smoking in public places. Summary. 1. Amend Section 8.5-32 of the Georgetown Code of Ordinances to provide a revised definition of retail tobacco store. 2. Provides for repeal of inconsistent ordinances, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's Office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Publicly introduced and read the first time July 8th, 2019. Publicly read the second time July 22nd, 2019.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval?
Motion.
Thank you.
I'll
And
second.
second.
Who's second it? Polly?
And just, again, for the public's benefit, this is necessary for us to protect our smoking ordinance in light of the cigar and bourbon bar. We didn't want to so open up our ordinance as to allow smoking in places where we didn't intend to. Can we call it?
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Showalter?
Yes.
Mrs. Tingle Sames?
Yes.
Mrs. Lesby Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Lesby?
Yes.
Mrs. Singer Erdley?
Yes.
Thank you. That ordinance passes. And item E is second reading of Unmanned Aircraft Systems Ordinance. Sponsors are Ms. Erdley and Mr. Lesby. I would think we call this the drone ordinance.
An ordinance creating a new article of Georgetown Code of Ordinances, Chapter 10, regarding use of unmanned aircraft systems within the city of Georgetown. Summary. 1. Creates a new article of Georgetown Code of Ordinances, Chapter 10, to provide for prohibited areas of launching and landing of unmanned aircraft systems, regulations on the safe operation of unmanned aircraft systems, prohibitions on operating unmanned aircraft systems for the purpose of voyeurism or harassment, and other miscellaneous requirements. Provides penalties for the violation of various provisions. 2. Provides for repeal of inconsistent ordinances, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's Office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Publicly introduced and read for the first time July 8, 2019. Publicly read the second time July 22nd, 2019.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion. I'm sorry. I'll make a motion.
Motion made. And second. Was that a second?
Sure.
I thought it sounded like a second. If there are no questions, we'll call the roll.
Mrs. Singer Erdley?
Yes.
Mr. Lesby?
Yes.
Mrs. Lesby Mitchell?
Yes.
Mrs. Tingle Sames?
Yes.
Mr. Showalter?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Thank you. Those ordinances passed. Item 9 on your agenda, city engineer. I did not ask Eddie to stick around in town for the meeting because these are all pretty straightforward items we have under his part of the agenda. Number A is a municipal order approving Marketplace Circle street dedication. And in your packet, you'll see the recommendation from planning and zoning. So is there a motion for approval? Thank you.
Motion. Second.
And second. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item B is similar. It's a municipal order approving White Oaks Properties street dedication. Same documentation is in your package.
Motion, Mayor.
Thank you.
I'll second.
And a second. And if no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Item C is, you'll notice in your packet, is a municipal order approving a change order. It's number 5 for Lanes Run Business Park. It's a relatively small change order in the amount of $8,364, where the engineers have thought this would be a better long-term solution to maintain the integrity of an embankment. So, is there a motion for approval of that change order?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
And second. And if there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, that carries. Item D is a municipal order approving an amendment to the contract with Integrated Engineering for Cardinal Drive. We've been working on our fixes for Cardinal Drive for some time. You'll recall that our original concept was to try and three-lane Cardinal Drive, and we thought that would solve the problem. It turned out the engineers didn't think we could wide Cardinal Drive enough to fix the problem. Instead, what they've done is proposed a solution where we route the traffic behind the high school, and it provides significantly more stack room for the drop-off area. School agreed with that plan being the best plan. This change order simply, we hire Integrated Engineering to acquire a handful of easements for us. These easements will not be difficult. Some are in the county's name, some are in the school's name. I think one is an individual. We will pay for those easements, but we will get that money back because it will go toward our required match for the grant. So essentially, they're free easements, but we're simply going through. This grant requires that we go through the full procurement process for the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. And that process requires that we have it appraised, that we have a contract, that we pay for it. But ultimately, we'll take the total amount of those payments, and they will be a part of our required match. So it's not actually our payment.
So they're, am I reading it right, that the original amount was $186,000, and they're asking for a $49,000 increase to do what they need to do? Is that right?
Mind if I?
No, please.
So our contract with Integrated for the engineering was $186,000, but the original contract did not contemplate right-of-way acquisition at all. The cabinet said add that later when you have a better idea. So we added that. So we're going to pay for the engineering costs of the right-of-way, but actually we're going to get a lot of donated right-of-way. We'll have to buy some of it, but the donated right-of-way from the county and the school system will count towards our match. So this amendment will not increase our match amount to the ultimate contract at all.
Okay, all right, okay.
So we're changing the overall plan then, instead of, I mean, that's what I'm hearing anyway. So Cardinal Drive will no longer be a 3-lane road.
In sections it will be, David. The 3-laning of Cardinal Drive, there were two things. It drove the cost up beyond what the grant would provide, and they didn't think it really solved the problem. Our engineers actually suggested to the school system that they dramatically reroute their traffic, and the school system agreed with our engineers that it was a better plan than what they had.
Okay.
So we brought a change order to you previously to support this concept because we had to, if you'll recall, we had to spend some of our grant money on school property,
right,
and it required council permission to do that.
Yeah.
So this is an extension of that same concept that we've been working on, routing the traffic behind the school.
Okay.
Did we get a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Motion's been made
I'll second.
and seconded. Thank you. And if there are no further questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. That is approved.
Mayor, what about timing on that? That is a question I do receive from time to time. Do we even know when construction potentially could start?
That's a really key question, David, and I can't answer it.
That's all right. Maybe we could.
We can get that answer by the next council.
We'll get that answer for y'all. We did get an update on East Main Extended today, and they're really working on it.
Moving on.
And we've received assurances that that road will be completed well before the start of school.
Will they have any sidewalks on the sides of the road? Will they have sidewalks on the road?
It has curb and gutter, Marvin, in the area that is in front of the school.
Okay.
I'm assuming there would be sidewalks where there is curb and gutter. One of the cost saving when they value engineered it to get us down to a price we could afford, we eliminated the curb and gutter on the parts of the road that are not in front of the school. So I'm not sure about that.
Well, I've had a couple of citizens that have kids that they're probably be going there, curious. They'd be walking down that subdivision to that school. They're just curious. They'd be sidewalks. I said I'd ask.
Yeah. So we need to double check on that. particularly in the areas.
Matthew might be able to, I don't know, if we were just kind
You know
of looking at each
Matthew?
other. I don't know if he knows or not.
I don't. I would also be surprised if the.
Do you want to come up?
I would also be surprised if the school would be agreeable to allowing students to walk across East Main Extended. There'd be a lot of safety concerns with that.
Well, there are subdivisions across the street, so we are providing crosswalk.
Yeah.
There'll be a crosswalk there, so, yeah.
And I'm gonna guess there'll be a traffic light eventually too.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that trucks coming out of the quarry
Slow.
have to decrease
Yeah.
speed
Yeah.
and stop immediately prior to the
I
school.
think that makes sense.
That's why they were thinking there's gonna be a crosswalk. There will be students walking, so they were curious about the sidewalks. We'll find out.
Yeah, I don't know about sidewalks.
There, two questions.
Mhm.
East Main Extended, there in front of the new elementary school, are the telephone poles and the lines gonna stay where they're at? Are they gonna be moved?
I don't know.
Just directly in front of the school?
I'm not sure if that's a part of the school's plans. I don't know that it's a part of our road plan.
Okay.
We'll have to ask that question.
Okay. Second question, Cardinal Drive.
Mhm.
Will there ultimately be a stoplight at Cardinal Drive?
We hope so.
Okay.
That has been in our request from the get-go, that we needed, when you turn onto Long Lick, or excuse me, Cardinal Drive, when you take the left onto Cardinal Drive, we need the lane improvements for the left turn lane, but that only functions well if we have a phased traffic light there. And so far, the state has not agreed to the traffic light. The lanes help us, but they do not eliminate our need to pay police overtime to force the solution to work twice a day. So we're still paying excessive police overtime to make that work. Signalization would save us money, but we haven't gotten it done yet. They say the warrants are not met. You know, that's their word, that you have to meet certain traffic counts every hour of the day. They call them meeting warrants. And we meet the warrants twice a day, very clearly, but we don't in the other hours through the day.
Well, for the same reason that at the other end of Cardinal Drive, it's a caution light for 22 hours of the day.
Yeah.
You know, but yet for 2 hours, it kicks on as a red and full functioning light. Is that something that they're just absolutely saying no all the way around, or?
They're very strict about meeting this warrant requirement. The only time around here we've seen that process circumvented is there is going to be a traffic light installed at Betsy Way in the bypass. That light does not meet warrants because the high school's not open yet.
Yeah.
Looks like they would be more proactive putting them in instead of waiting until you have everything running on top of each other.
Their attitude is when you can prove you need
Yeah,
it,
it is.
we will consider it. Now, I went with Judge Covington to the Secretary of Transportation's office, and he made an appeal for the one at Betsy Drive, even though they cannot possibly meet warrants until after school starts.
All right.
What the Secretary agreed to do, that if Scott County would self-fund a traffic study, which they did, and the traffic engineer assigned very conservative traffic counts to the events that are going to be shortly forthcoming, the Secretary agreed to use that in lieu of warrants. And the county did, Secretary did, and they're going to get a traffic light.
Where's this, Mayor?
Betsy Way.
Betsy
I know
Way.
that, but which
The
one
high
did
school.
Mark ask about?
Cardinal Drive.
Cardinal Drive.
Cardinal Drive, okay, I'm sorry, I got you now.
So typically the warrants are just a hard process. The judge got the only one done I've ever heard of getting done.
And it's, you know, from years being out there, it's a nightmare.
Oh,
Even when you split the high school, it's still going to be a nightmare. So,
yeah.
So we'll continue our quest to get the right signalization and save our police department having to spend as much overtime as they do. We think we're keeping people safe, but we're having to do it through overtime.
Well, we're paying what we shouldn't have to be where the state's put the lights in, simple as that.
Thank you.
So the one that Mark has asked about, and I apologize, is it on 25? Is that the one you're not asking about? Okay, because they're already, that's the one that Todd's talking about.
Cardinal Drive.
Yeah, right on Cardinal Drive.
Yes.
On the,
Bypass in.
yeah, whatever, Ironworks?
Long Lick End.
Long Lick, Long Lick.
It's,
Long Lake and Cardinal.
Yeah, that's it.
it's early in the morning and before school, as Todd stated, before and after school, it's bad.
Well, that's the intersection where, for a while, we tried to do it with crossing guards.
That won't work.
And we got 2 crossing guards severely injured, and our workers' comp cost went through the roof because of crossing guards getting knocked to the ground by aggressive drivers. And we had to go back to sworn police officers to do this, and we're paying the overtime to keep people safe.
Wow.
We've tried every solution we can try, but until we get the signalization, it's gonna be a dangerous place.
Can I jump back to East Main real quick? Eddie responded to me really quickly. So they'll have sidewalks on the school side all the way to the last subdivision. So at the 2 subdivisions, there will be a crosswalk so that they can walk sidewalk right into their neighborhood, but there won't be a sidewalk on the opposite side of the street.
So coming out of the street, they'll just have to get to where the crosswalk
Yeah,
is
they'll
and
walk
get
on
on
the
the sidewalk.
on the school side and then to their crosswalk.
Okay.
So.
There will be eventually a sidewalk on the other side of the street as well, eventually.
I would have to.
I would hope so.
For now, no.
Right.
We would hope so.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, sir.
Going back to the Cardinal Drive. If for some reason we can't get a stoplight there, can we at least get street lights there? And it's a dark intersection, very dark.
That was on our list.
I just wanted to ask, so.
Can go on our, is it on our list?
I think it is on our list.
I think it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's on us.
Yeah, when you come off of 25 all the way into where you make that turn, it's dark as can be up through there, so.
Country.
Yeah.
I'd like to get a more specific answer for you, Mark, because I'm operating off a general understanding when I give you that answer. I don't want, I hate to give you the wrong answer in a meeting.
Hold you to it too.
I know. It's on tape. It can be held against me in a court of law.
Mayor, I hate to even bring it up, but I mean, I know that the judge and Mayor Varney and the school superintendent, which may have been Putty at the time, went to Frankfurt about the intersection in front of Amerson for the new school there as well. So I mean, there's really a few locations
Traffic light there.
that have been requested to no avail.
Yeah.
Well,
At
the
least
comment
as of
for
yet.
that one is that they don't have the traffic coming out,
Right,
and it's
right.
only on Sundays for the church, but not, when they get that built in there, they're gonna have to put one. Why not be proactive and put it in before?
We were told when the townhouses got put in there.
Right.
And built up a little bit more, that they
Yeah.
could probably meet those
Yeah.
ones through the day.
Through the day, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a real cumbersome process, and for places that have peak traffic just a few times during the day, it's almost impossible to meet their standards.
Yeah, it is.
But good questions, thank you. Item 10 on the agenda is Police Department, a municipal order approving a bid for a computer service. Computer
motion?
server. Yeah, and this is for the New World Dispatch
Right.
System. It's a requirement.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Thank you. If there are no questions about that, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Well, we're at that wonderful time of the meeting for council comments. Tammy, can we start with you?
None today, thank
None
you.
tonight. Uh-huh. You're good? Karen?
I just ran into somebody over the weekend, lives over in the Walnut Street area, the Tree Streets, and was just complaining. It's been brought to their attention because some development trying to go over there about not having curbs and gutters over there, and they don't, and so I drove over there. They don't. Walnut Street in particular.
Never have.
Sidewalk, everything just goes right out to the street,
Mhm.
so. Anyway, I said I'll bring it up tonight.
Sewer tax.
Yeah. Much like Indian Hills.
Yeah, similar. Yep.
Similar.
Similar.
but yeah.
Similar.
But they
You know,
got
that was-
sidewalks. Indian Hills doesn't have
That's
some
right,
of
they
those
got
there.
sidewalks.
Indian Hills doesn't have sidewalks. I don't know how in that period of time that got approved with no sidewalks.
Well, it got approved with sidewalks, but it got approved with no curbs, and so it's right, that's what's the difference
About
between.
Walnut Street?
Yeah.
Or
Well, Indian Hills in
Indian Hills
particular.
got no sidewalks, no curbs, no nothing, but over there, they got the sidewalks, but then it rose right out into the street, basically.
Maybe
Just
because
kind of-
we don't have a good planning and zoning yet?
Well, there were some lax standards that we wouldn't approve today.
Right.
I can't see that happening in front of this council.
No, but back then, you know, without the community.
We have had, there's been a controversial development over the tree
Okay,
streets.
that's probably what brought it out.
It was
Probably
a fiveplex.
the
but it got-
fiveplex.
But it got denied.
Okay.
Yeah,
It got toned down anyway into,
I think it got denied, didn't it?
I got denied.
Yeah,
That's what I thought
it was
read.
denied.
That was denied, yeah, it's in the paper.
okay. Thank you. Did we vote on the police server? Did we get a motion?
Yes.
We did, a motion.
We got a motion.
100%.
All in favor, it's all in favor.
Oh, we're all done. That's right, we're council comments now, aren't we? Duh, I'll catch up.
It's Connie's turn.
I'm good, Walnut, that's it. I'm good.
See how much you confused me, Karen? I went back to the agenda.
I seem to have an art form for
Some
that.
of that agenda must not went his way, because he's going back and trying to get another vote on it.
Thank you, Connie.
I don't have anything, thank you.
David? Good, Mayor, thanks.
Harvey?
I'm good.
All right.
Actually, I have a few things.
Go ahead.
Put the brakes on here. This is for Devin. Did Eddie get a chance to look at the do not litter signs?
Yes, he
Okay.
and Robert have been working together
Okay. Oh,
to
good.
send over a couple samples,
Okay.
different language that they have, but
Okay.
they're putting together a short list of like really target
Oh,
locations.
okay,
But
yeah,
if you
we
have,
really need to.
if you have some in mind too, I'd be glad to hear them. They were gonna obviously
Okay.
pick some heavily traveled
Yeah,
areas.
460, Main,
Yeah,
Broadway.
so, but if you have other
Main
ideas.
Road. Okay,
shoot
okay.
me over.
I will.
They talked about that today, Polly, and Devin asked that the signs carry the KRS language.
The language, yeah.
So that we can enforce.
Yeah.
If it's not clearly on the sign, it's difficult to enforce, so.
Well, some of
Yeah.
them even put the penalty amount, which I think is pretty powerful.
I think you
If
need that
exceed
penalty amount. That's
X
what
dollar
we
for
wait.
it, and you're not gonna.
Wait,
See
somebody.
handicap signs.
And we might need to put some signs downtown, because not to be whatever, but there's a lot of dogs that aren't being picked up after on Main Street. It's pretty gross when I was walking in today, so.
Yeah, that's in our pet ordinance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's in the ordinance.
That's in the ordinance.
It was a-
And then, in the police committee, we had talked about the DAR monument. Remember we discussed that? And I did speak to them, and they really don't have any interest in moving it. They said that the hill was the site of the fort, so they want to keep it there. And then, regarding the, Welcome to Georgetown Sign on Cherry Blossom, I talked to Lori Saunders, and we had a big conversation about it. And she said, what's going on with it? There's clay soil in it, so anything that they plant just dies, and of course they can't water it because, well, what they're gonna do, we get to that. So what they're gonna do in the fall, Festival of the Horse, they're gonna put pumpkins, hay bales, scarecrows, dress it up really cute, at the signs and the entrances. At Christmas, they're gonna put some winter kind of tree foliage in, do that. And then next spring, they're going to come up with a plan. They're gonna redo the soil, they're gonna plant some native flowers, daylilies, things like that. And then, she has talked about working with the trustees and Darren Broyles, the trustees from the jail, that would go around and maintain and keep that. And then she also said she's been dealing with the railroad about the bridge, as you come into town, Paris Pike, about planting some stuff there and working with them. And she hasn't made any inroads, but she's calling them every week. So she's really, working on it. And then I ran into Broyles downtown, and he said that, they're doing a lot with county beautification. That's on their list, one of the things. So stuff is in the works. We just don't see it right now. So it is being worked on. So
Thank you.
that's all I have.
President Jones is on campus. Had his first day today. Great guy. If you get a chance, go out and meet him. He is a super nice guy.
He put a nice little, hi, I'm the new president video on Facebook today.
I saw that.
He's very approachable.
All righty.
Unlike a lot of college presidents,
Yeah. From Whitley County, so, yeah.
Close to Tennessee.
Yep.
All right, if there's nothing to come before the council, we will stand.
Adjourn. There you adjourn.
I've already gabbled us down, Steve. Why don't we talk later?